Hey guys, welcome back. Hero Labs Live 85, episode 85, that is. As you can see, I'm in my new space. No green screen just yet. Decided to go to sleep because sleep is important. And I was grinding and setting this thing up last night, but I got the setup going. So that's really exciting for me because 5 days off the screens with no screens during this market is a little bit stressful. And today we've got Oh Hey Matty in here. How's it going, Matty?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on again.
Yeah, appreciate you coming back here, brother. And it's a good time for it because one of the questions I'm seeing a lot is around how to select projects. You know, people come in, they say, wow, how does a blockchain work? How does a wallet work? Holy shit, there's 6,000 coins. How do I sift through the trash? How do I separate the gems from the scams, so to speak, and what's going to move next? And I know that you made a big name for yourself in 2017 with the ICO craze, making the spreadsheets, driving through the due diligence process, applying ratings, and we're fairly successful in doing that. I would say highly successful. So it seemed like the right time to invite you back on to have that conversation, unpack that whole process, share with us, what you do when you get a new project. And I know I've even looked at some of your more recent due diligence reports, and I really appreciate them. They just bring to life a lot of things that I wouldn't even think about when I'm looking at some of these pre-sales. And, we'll just have that conversation today for a little bit, and then we'll get into the charts because Ethereum is blasting yet again into outer space, all-time highs, price discovery sitting at 1633 right now, peaking today at 1655 on Binance. Well, I guess I'm looking at the futures here, but either way, man, it's an exciting time to be in, and that makes it all the more important to do your due diligence. So, welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I guess there's like two types of projects when you're referring to. The first one is a project that's not out in the market yet, and then there's a product that's already out in the market. It's post sale. There's more technical analysis that does go into that. But you're kind of just creating this mentality. If you wanted to break it down from a simple perspective, is this overvalued or is this undervalued? Right. Mm-hmm. That's your main goal across the board. If you're in a pre-sale, then everything's about float and what the general market dynamics are and whether or not, like, where this falls on that scale. So I tell a lot of people, this kind of comes from feel, but it also comes from some data metrics as well, just from analyzing projects over the last 6 months. But pretty much any project that launches that's halfway relevant in this market, because it's a bull market, is 1 to 3 million in terms of market cap. And obviously everything that we're going to discuss today is not financial advice. I don't want you to go out and take any recommendations or actions based off this information. This is just personal opinion. But 1 to 3 million is the average, like anyone can make it market cap. And 3 to 5 million is probably the low end. But in general, 5 to 10 million is where we're landing at the moment. If we head into a bear trend, that changes. It's probably 3 to 7. And the upside to that 5 to 10 million average range can maybe extend to 15. So we have to understand what drives dynamics in terms of projects, right? There's I talked about this life cycle of an ICO back in 2017, and this life cycle from a high level, like a 500-foot view, was that when a project comes out, it's mainly speculation based on these market dynamics in terms of market cap. Market cap drives everything. We're talking about circulating cap, not fully diluted, which the difference is like how many tokens are in circulation multiplied by the price. Fully diluted would be the total supply multiplied by the current price, right?
Which is kind of a new thing. I mean, that metric was not on most pages back in 2017, right? The fully diluted. Mm-hmm. You could see the max supply. You could calculate it. It's interesting now that there's a lot of people. Ledger Status was here a few weeks ago. He says, I only look at fully diluted. But I'm kind of like you. I tend to lean towards circulating because sometimes that full dilution is a 10-year vest or in Bitcoin's case, a 100-year POW kind of inflation. So
yeah, I mean, fully diluted has its own influence. Its main influence is that eventually that supply will come out. So how will the growth of the price scale versus the emission rate in which the tokens are coming out? and people will do like TVL versus fully diluted market cap rate, or they'll do circulating market cap versus TVL. TVL stands for total value locked. There's a new class of assets that have to focus on staking and having money locked into a smart contract, and that's where you're going to get your best price viewpoint of something is via TVL, because excuse me, you have a tangible, equatable reference point to say, well, they're worth this much money because the market has deemed them worthy of having billions of dollars, XYZ, and they haven't been hacked yet, so they're still relevant to a degree. But I actually go the other way. I think that when you look at the life cycle of an ICO, you look at the life cycle of a pre-sale or whatever when it comes out in the market, usability is rarely ever a factor in the currency itself. And the reason I say that is because most projects never launch with a tangible product. And even when they do, it takes a long time to be able to build that user base. So what you're seeing, and this isn't kind of a nod to the SEC, but what you're seeing is a highly speculative market for price discovery on an asset. And when you're looking at a highly speculative market on a price asset, then what's important to know is what is the average speculating market for the buy demand. And that comes from just monitoring these historical data sets or data points of these projects that are coming out. So when I talk about this, 1 to 3 million, any project can make it there as long as it's not a scam and has at least a tangible story to tell. And you look at like a 5 to 10 million average landing point, and you look at like over performance being in the 10 to $15 million range. What I'm essentially saying is that a project will rarely ever like exceed that $15 million cap because there's no tangible fundamentals to it yet. There's going to be a price discovery process in which people will want to cycle through taking profits, new buyers coming in, periods of consolidation, just a lot of speculatory price action. So in reality, you don't even really need fundamentals to know what you should be investing in. You can really determine it primarily based on the float. And as long as you feel like the narrative that the product is spinning is one that investors can sink their teeth into, at least to some degree, then it doesn't really matter, because you're gonna have a good gauge of where it can land. The people behind it are very important. Anything that's really going to drive speculation towards price, which I know is what a lot of people don't want to hear. Everyone wants to feel like they're investing in something that's tangible. But the future, yeah. And I will say that the space has become more mature, that more people get this now than in 2017. The problem in 2017 was that we were building the roads to the clouds, right? And myself and others may have fueled some of that speculation as well. Just to take some blame on that. But we tried to sift through the bullshit and cut out the bad actors, the very clear scammy projects or whatever. But it was hard. No one's saying that stuff's easy, because you never know until something happens. You really just kind of say, well, is that idea feasible? What type of impact will that have? Now, going down the road of the life cycle of the ICO, after you go through that dormant period, after the price discovery has been founded, then everything really focuses on actual use case. It focuses on people actually using the product, and it focuses on liquidity, right? There's still a speculatory nature to it. There always will be in markets, regardless if something is tangible from a use case perspective. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get to the 50 million, the 250 million, or the $1 billion market cap, you're going to need a pretty big reason to do that. Now, we're going through a transformational phase right now. That transformational phase was who can beat Ethereum to Ethereum exceptionalism, which means that we've accepted Ethereum as our true god to take us forward into the alt realm space for Mortal Kombat, right?
That's what it looks like right now.
Yeah, and we talked about this on our last show, and I've talked about it many times before, is that what we're seeing is a shakeout of the vaporware and ghost chains, and an onboarding of tangible Ethereum assets that are driving the ecosystem forward. And Polkadot will do this in the next phase. Polkadot is the speculative Ethereum for now. And in fact, anyone in China, they'll invest in anything with Polka in the name at this point.
That's been my thesis for a little while.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, microcap, Polkadot, let's go. And
Yeah.
Dot is actually at just about tap $20 today on the nose.
And that's really the thing, is understanding trends is half the game. And it doesn't mean noticeable trends. There is some nuance to that analysis. So first off, you need to identify whether something can be a trend. And then you need to ask yourself how long it will take to be a trend, both in terms of feasibility and in speculation. So sometimes it may take a couple projects to come out that do well, that people are like, okay, well, that's an idea I can get behind. Right? Polkadot is still kind of fuming ahead because that entire ecosystem is going to be massive. It's the rising sun to complement Ethereum. So we talk about Ethereum's acceptance, right? Polkadot is a complement to them. It's not just a competitor. Yeah. So it's required within the Ethereum ecosystem in terms of scalable and cross-chain activity. It's welcomed, yes.
It's the bridge, yeah.
And it's designed by people who are connected with Ethereum as well. But yeah, so noticing these trends and what's hot at the moment, what's hot in the year mark, what's hot 4 years from now, you're constantly having to keep your mind open to that expansion and how the investor community is responding to them, right? And the case in point with the seniors craze, that was a really big thing, and we identified that really early on at Magnus. We identified it really early on with Dollar Protocol. And I actually still believe that Dollar Protocol can potentially outgrow the senior space because it's different in the sense that it is an enhancement to Ample. It's an evolution of Ample. Ample was a crazy tool. Look how many different use cases we're seeing for Elastic Supply coins. Even to this day, I think I just saw an NFT version of it, which looked pretty interesting, right? So yeah. It's that, but there's also another portion of trend, right? Saturation can happen fairly easily in this space. And we're seeing that with AMMs at the moment, right? But what I will do is, I know that there's a fire that's attracting people for warmth in terms of saturation, but who's coming to the fire with something different, right? Who's heading towards the trend in a different way? So I thought that Straddle Finance could do really well, because they were doing stable swaps with Synthetic's proposal number 89, which is basically these stable swap synthetic attributes. And I still think Straddle can do really good. I think they fucked something up, but this is an example of like a blue ocean approach, right? Where you're saying, look, AMMs are hot, but I'm going to do it differently, right?
Well, I'm bringing something unique. Yeah, you got to offer something new, and it's a world of clones. And DSD was a really, I would say, profitable clone for a lot of people, but that's just all it was. And we're seeing it in the price today. It's just kind of like, womp, womp. Doesn't really change anything. So when things are hot, it's hot. When things are cold, it's non-existent.
Yeah, well, what they're finding in the ELS, and I work very closely with Dollar Protocol, giving feedback to Robert and others in our small kind of echo chamber of ways we can change things and why certain things are happening in a certain way, as you know. And when we look at seniors and that space, we have to understand what makes Ample Ample. The reason why Ample has some sort of peg realistically over time, even though they have had speculative instruments injected in, is because they decrease the supply when there's no demand, and they increase the supply when there's demand to be eaten, right? That's why it's an elastic supply coin. But if you look at seniors, all of them have this X bond that protects you from negative rebase, right? And if the goal is, and I asked Robert this directly, and he agrees, if the goal is stability around the peg, not stability, but stability around the peg, in this case, the dollar, then 80% of the supply is locked up in X bond because everyone went into it to escape the dilution. So therefore, the system doesn't equate, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense that we're keeping to peg because it's going the other direction. So that's what we're trying to fix right now. But I think a lot of those seniors coins, they just think, well, this is the way, because they're just copies, right? Dollar Protocol was, I'm pretty sure it was the original or one of the originals at that time to adopt the seniors model and put that out. It's a team of smart individuals, not to put that on any of the other teams, obviously, who are putting out great tech and great ideas and have a firm understanding what's happening behind the scenes. So they understand why the peg on seniors and algorithmic stablecoins are not being met. It's because the mechanism that's meant to stabilize them around that peg has been rendered useless, right? So we need to create other functionalities within the technology to be able to either dilute that impact of the removal of the D-base, right? Or create some sort of functionality that improves stability, because their model is that, well, given long enough time, we'll create a stabilized peg, but it won't be a finite stabilized peg. It'll be a moving peg that shows sentiment of buy and sell demand, which is useful to some degree. But it's not as useful as something that needs to be stable, because we're talking about algorithmic stable coins, right? We're talking about being able to have non-volatile, decentralized assets that people can use to spend money on. And you can't get that if your peg's not stable. So.
And somebody just made a funny comment. He says, I like how this sounds like it happened years ago, but I think it was like a few months, right? Which really feels like years in crypto time. It was just before Christmas. You know, algo stable coins were all the rage. They were heating up which one to get next, which fork to buy next. And most of them, if not all, and I haven't looked, maybe today we could even just take a look, are just sitting like well below peg. And that's kind of what you're talking about, having that demand driver beneath. And the way it's designed right now, to me, is so dependent on the flavor of the month. And, you know, we've got to find a way, and we're kind of sliding into dollar protocol talk right now, but I don't mind that. We've got to find a way to really drive demand for those dollars that has nothing to do with the speculation that you will just get positive rebases and enjoy them. There needs to be another use case, because now there isn't. And that's why without that positive rebase, it just turns into a bleh, and it just like, that was all that was firing it, or supporting it, I should say. So, you know, I've been keeping an eye on that chat, and I've seen you've been really active in there, and I'm just kind of reading through it most nights when I go to bed, because I just too many things right now to drive that bus in particular. But yeah, I've still got my share bag. I'm still holding on to a few stables in that sense, but you know, it's definitely a backseat item for me right now. I'm really focusing on some of these new finance projects and some of the DeFi stuff. Just before we pivot completely away from, you know, one of the main things I wanted to talk to you about today, I've got a router protocol DD report that you put together. It's got a nice model. Do you think I could pull that up right now and we'll just have a brief chat? Because, you know, one of the things I would like for everyone here to be able to take away today is, you know, I think a lot of people are like me. They create a circle of trust people that they know, that they know their shit. And then you can sort of aggregate due diligence by saying, well, this guy, you know, he makes great calls. I trust his takes. Of course, I'm assuming full responsibility for my risks, but I'm not going to go and do a full breakdown of a project. I'm just going to be like, oh, 2 million Polkadot insurance.
Let's pull up Sari first, because that's a really detailed report.
I had, you know what? I started with that one, but it had a bunch of names on it and comments around it, and I just wasn't sure how public you wanted to make it. It wasn't like bashing anyone, but it was it was an honest report. Do you want to? I can pull that up.
Yeah, we'll go with honesty. I've never held back in terms of my reviews.
I like
that helped me avoid being caught up in that whole Sparkster scandal. They actually ended up calling me a racist, because that was their only defense that they had left after I completely wrecked them in terms of calling them out for being a scam. But
but
yeah,
you know,
that's what happens in the space.
It turns out that you were right.
You're not always going to be right, but people in this space will try and tear. This is the problem with the space. You're in a space with money, right? So regardless of what your intentions are, people will misinterpret it. And regardless of information that you put out there, regardless of how robust it is, people will try and tear it down, because there's people out there that have a vested interest in silencing you. So think about it like from the perspective of like WikiLeaks founder, Julian Assange, or Glenn Greenwald, or even like one of my favorite YouTubers, Jimmy Dore, right? These people speak truth to power, and there's a level of like purity that they try to walk, but at the same time like are delivering concrete value. And all you hear about is the people who have a vested interest in what they're talking about from the other side. They're just going to constantly try and find ways to tear them down, discredit them, etc. So it's one of the reasons I stepped back from YouTube and doing project reviews. It felt a little dirty to at the end. I ended up pivoting to TA and self-taught myself TA over the course of 2 to 3 years. But at the same time, it's just you get to see all the evil that's really in this space. So instead, I just like have moved on to the financial space. I've started up with our own fund. I'm working with Magnus. I'm delivering quality research reports in the private sector. And though that value is maybe not being translated on a streamlined basis out to the public, I think it's for the best in general, right? Mhm. From you or I?
God, you know why? No, I got it. I got it. We're back, I think. Okay, now I'm hearing myself. Okay. Still hearing myself.
Someone said in the chat that we're back. Well, that's
okay.
right, because you pulled over the.
How about now? Okay, perfect. We're back. All right, guys. Look, there's so much to cover on charts. There's so many, I know there's probably a lot of people watching that want to get some requests in. We're going to do some charts. So for the sake of time, I want to walk through this. Obviously, it's a fairly robust report. I think if we go through it too much in detail, we'll perhaps overextend our audience as far as time goes. So, in a nutshell, because the takeaway we want to have for people today is, a little insight into what specifically we look at here. You obviously have your own, tried, tested, and true system where, you rank the team, you rank the tokenomics. I can see here you rank the roadmap, and then you apply scores. You end up with a final score, and that's how you do that. So why don't you walk us through, I guess, with brevity in mind for Siri here, because I know this one. This is one that we invested in. It's pretty strong looking. I think it came out with a fairly decent score, but there's a lot more to it than that. Take us through your process here.
Sure. So this one, so in the beginning, you see the aggressive and conservative, right? And this is relevant because it's going to specifically dictate the risk management in which I'm looking to apply. So you have to understand that when you're investing in pre-sales, your money is less liquid, right? You don't know whether or not the project's going to hold your money for X amount of months and then release, right? I think when I invested into Reef, which is a similar vein to this project in terms of the backers, I think with Reef, I had my money invested for like 2 months, and then also you're going to have to understand that like you're vested up. So how much are you getting up front, and how much do you think it can go from the circulating cap to your target, right? And ideally, I'm looking for it to go at least 2 to 3x. Ideally, average 2.5x on my initial. So let's say I put in 10,000. They give me like 20% of that, so it's 2,000. I'm looking to hit 20 to 25,000, so 10 to 12x on that initial, right? But
Yeah.
2.5x. And I'm looking at a number of different factors based on these scores to say, well, should I be conservative or should I be aggressive? Like for example, when Keeper dropped with Andre, that was a post sale project, obviously, but it launched out of nowhere. That would be something that I'd want to be more aggressive on. So maybe I'd say, solid play. This is aggressive. I come in at a 5 to 10%, right? But you can also see that the average aggressive play, which means I have more confidence in, is actually the solid play on the conservative side, right? You can see that punt on aggressive is an average play, and then punt is 1%. Now, normally when I'm trading as a trader, I prefer 1% per trade, right? Maybe up to 2.
Me too. Yeah. Well, 1% allocation, or are you talking about 1% max drawdown?
1%. Your loss will be 1% of your bankroll.
Yeah. So that's usually where I live too.
Yeah. So that's like a good rule of thumb. But in investment, especially for a liquid pre-sales, because your money is going to be tied up, if you're going like 1%, you're barely going to have enough turnaround going on, right? So you need to have a portion of your portfolio be an investment portfolio, and then that portion of your portfolio is always at work with an extra bullet behind. So like when I have my structure, what I've been doing for the last month or two is 20% Bitcoin, 20% ETH, 20% blue chips, 20% investment. We'll just call it investment. That's anything pre-sale to potentially other stuff. And then 20% stables. So you can see I have this 20% behind if I wanted to reinject it into the market. It's in 20% stables. It's now up to 30% now because I feel like we're getting a little toppish. So I'm taking money off the table as we get towards my goal. I think that Ethereum will minimally hit 10,000. And at that point, I think my portfolio will be large enough that I'm willing to start taking most of my money off the table. So my goal is to be like, okay, by the time we hit 10,000, I have 50% of my portfolio off the table. The other 50% will be technically traded. So when it hits my daily or 3 day short, I'll sell into the dead cat, and then I'm out of the market until the next market cycle. That's how I look at where we're going to be heading, right? And I know 10K is an arbitrary number, but psychology really plays a lot into things. I think
it's going to be a magnet, and it's going to be a brick wall.
It's going to be a magnet. It's going to be a brick wall, just like with 20,000. And it could go way beyond that, but that's why 50% of it will be traded technically. The other 50% will be traded the other direction, because there was like, when we look at what happened, my systems basically took the short and then sold between 14 and 17 on Bitcoin. But I want it to be that if I take 50% off the table gradually and the other 50%, I can get like 40 out of that, then I maintain about 80 to 90% instead of having to only deal with like 50 to 70, right? So it's just how don't think about it in specifics. Think about it in a strategy that has risk management built in, constantly taking money off the table and putting some away for a rainy day, or putting some away that if you need to fire more into your investment portfolio. Because when I get to that other side with the 50%, if I want more risk, then I'll bake the risk in. I don't need to buy Bitcoin, because recently I haven't had any Bitcoin. I said 20% Bitcoin. That 20% just got distributed, because who the hell is holding Bitcoin in reality?
Well,
right?
Not when the dominance chart looks like this. You got better horses in the race, right?
Exactly.
And that's why I use this chart, right? It tells me when I want to be in Bitcoin, when I want to be risk on into other stuff. Circling back to your report here, I mean, I'm very much in that same ballpark. I like to have stables in my portfolio, if nothing else, just for like my futures account typically just sits in Tether. So, I always have some kind of stable. But one of the benefits of that I think a lot of people perhaps don't always get, and when they're newer to the space, is that when you have big rollover days or small, when this kind of stuff happens, then it allows you to benefit from that and having buying opportunities. Whereas if I'm fully invested in the space, I don't have any stables, I'm just 100% in, then this is just gross, right? There's nothing I can do on this day. I'm completely useless. There's no play I can make. And so I always have the stables so that, it's so cliche, right? You see on Twitter, no matter what day it is, no matter what depth of the bear market is, there's somebody saying, I just bought the dip. I just bought some more in this dip. And I'm always used to scoff at that. I'm like, what the hell, you've been buying every dip since 20K through the bear market. But I get it now. And so, you have your 20% stables. And when this kind of dip comes in, I put 5% back into there. And then it's like, oh, I can take that 5% out, or I can just ride it, whatever.
Yeah.
But stables are underrated, especially now that you can get yields on them. But going into this, you obviously you look at the team. Do you just use LinkedIn for that?
Yeah, so there is an investment hype score and an investment hodl score that I typically use. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but the hype score is going to be for that short-term speculative phase. The hodl score is going to be for that long-term 1 to 2 year outlook. And the team, you can see it says both. The team kind of focuses on both of that. So yeah, LinkedIn is a big one. I'm fortunate enough to have the luxury to sit down with a lot of teams. Excuse me. You're not going to find out everything about them, but
Yeah.
you'll be able to learn a lot having like an hour conversation. A lot of the times when I'm invested in a project, I've at least had 3 or 4 conversations. Some of the projects are being incubated, as you know. So there's a lot of moving parts to it. But LinkedIn is definitely helpful, or just knowing their general background. And I'm looking at 2 things. Are they entrepreneurial in their resume? But I'm also looking at what specifically in their resume tells me that they'll be able to execute on what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
The CEO, has he had experience leading prior verticals before, right? What was his success with those verticals? If I see a CEO that ran a company that got acquired, that's fantastic, because it tells me that they saw something in that company and that he was leading it, right? So he was able to build something from the ground up. If he has experience in multiple companies, even if it wasn't really acquired, it shows me that he knows what it takes to motivate his employees to get things done. But I also want to see that, depending on what they're doing, that he has at least a broad understanding of what they're specifically focused on. So if you're creating an options exchange or something like that, I would expect that you would have probably a background in options. If they don't, then okay, this is getting more speculative than it is fundamentally sound, right?
Yeah. So like used to work at Facebook making options exchange. Hype score high and total score low.
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. So with the that's a big one, right? So like, if I see people are working at Coinbase, or I see people are working at big companies, I know people are going to be out there on the streets being like, "Oh, this is a Coinbase backed project," or they're going to like try and spin some sort of narrative around that. This guy worked at, back in 2017. It was like, this guy worked at Microsoft and Oracle. Like every single dude worked at Microsoft and Oracle by the end of that bull run.
Yeah. Seriously.
Or they're going there. They're in the bear market. But yeah, it's a lot of that stuff where you're looking for feasibility. Like, oh yeah, we're like, I saw this when we look at the router report, or we look at things of that nature, like, oh yeah, we're doing like cross chain Polkadot or whatever, but like no one on their dev team has any even Solidity experience, let alone creating cross chain bridges. Now, don't get me wrong, if you have a background in computer science, you should be able to execute, but crypto is a space where you need domain knowledge desperately, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have to bring in a technical advisor. There's one project that I was speaking to that was kind of just at the CEO level, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Matty, can you help me find a CTO and get this idea off the ground?" Because at the end of the day, these startups are ideas, right? That's what people don't really understand. They're not projects. You ever see that 2017 ICO meme where it's a horse and the back half of the horse is beautiful, but the front half of the horse looks terrible? That's like the quintessential ICO, where it's like, we have this grandiose idea, but the execution is either totally different or piss poor in comparison to what we had in our mind, right? Or
And how
what
many have you
we're able
seen
to
that?
achieve.
Yeah, and how many have you seen now that have survived, but they're like completely different projects?
Yeah, I mean, like
Which is cool. I
95.
mean, do your thing, right?
Yeah.
Grow with the market, but it is interesting, and that's a funny analogy with the horse. I think idea and trend is a big one that I like to look at. I was actually just talking about it yesterday around following sectors. Right now we're seeing DEX tokens get big rallies. So sushi pumps, uni pumps, 1-inch pumps, buy serum, because it's the
Mhm.
DEX token that hasn't pumped. So catching ideas and within projects that have, trends and ideas that are hot, obviously. But like you said, sometimes these things, you're investing in it and then 3 months later, it's coming out. And so you got to think, well, what's the
Mhm.
trend going to be then? And in Siri's case, you gave it a 5 out of 10 for hype, a 3 out of 10 for hodl. and wrote some notes here. I won't go. I don't want to go in too in depth again. I want to get to a lot of charts. I know we got a bunch of viewers here. Probably some interesting chart requests. Maybe some opportunities to just get after it in the market. But tokenomics, we could skip to, because that's probably the most important one on here as far as I'm concerned. I mean, obviously you need a little bit of all this to be successful, but if your tokenomics are shit, it will kill any project, and vice versa. If they're great, they can really, mediocre projects can do really well if they just have, like, let's talk about bomb token. I mean, that was like a social experiment. The thing 100x'd in the bear market in 2018 because the tokenomics were insane. Every time you made a transfer, one bomb got burned. And so it was just this like hyper deflationary thing. Call it whatever you want. Even the team was talking about it just being like, hey, this is a social experiment, the first hyper deflationary currency. So tokenomics were on crack. Everything else was just kind of mediocre in the sense that they were just like, yeah, not like the future of finance, but we're going to try this. 120x that thing went. So yeah, tokenomics, I put a lot of value in. How do you look at them?
Yeah, so I mean, tokenomics are everything, right? Ian Bellina coined that himself, the god of tokenomics, right? If you want to go there. I know that he gets a lot of hate these days, but call a spade a spade. He was the original spreadsheet creator. He was the original like analysis. Inspired me to go create my own spreadsheet and start looking at tokenomics more deeply. But yeah, tokenomics are a huge driver. I mean, with the bomb token that you had mentioned, it had a deflationary functionality in it, and it was at a time where that hadn't been like overly abused. So if you look at everything nowadays, almost everything has some sort of what date was that? That was pumping?
This was like
in June of 2019.
June 2019. This was like the little spring rally right around consensus, but like, I mean, that was the bear market overall.
Yeah, that's the bear market, and they're really tapping into what would become a major trend in 2020, which is just deflationary everything. Burn it,
burn it to the ground. Less is more.
But what you're seeing there is just supply. You go back to the elastic supply coins, or you go back to just like buybacks in general. It's just simple market speculation, right? You're burning tokens and your supply is decreasing, so therefore the supply is getting limited. It creates a perception of scarcity, and also that demand. If demand stays flat, but the supply is going down, then price will go up, right? And it's just like if demand stays flat, but you start pushing a bunch of tokens into the ecosystem, then vice versa. And I'm sure there's funds out there that are probably have really amazing analytics tools to look at the demand versus normal demand, like average by demand, and then see how that's interacting on a more specific level. But from a simple perspective, when we look at tokenomics, I came in, you can see here that my investment type was conservative and my investment percentage was a punt, right? Even though I have tokenomics 10 out of 10 hype, you can see the disconnect here with the 3 out of 10 hodl. And that really stems from what this project was. So originally, and this is going to go into maybe some of the more sensitive subjects, especially for our own investment, but I'm willing to go there to kind of drive the information home of why this tokenomics section is so important. So they created what's called a poker round. That was the round that we came in because originally this project had launched in the bear market. And back at that point, it was more informational sharing, blockchain related. With the rise of Polkadot, they pivoted that vision into a more poker-centric vision, right? Now, I don't want people to get turned off by this because for those who aren't aware of what happens behind the scenes, things change so often with these projects in terms of ideation, and brands get rebranded all the time. Now, people would say, people in the general sense would be like, oh, that's a turnoff for me. And that's probably one of the reasons why it's been better for projects that more value capital has been fueling these and less like public capital, because those value capital understand how many changes can happen in the course of a project before it comes out, and they're taking the highest risk. But now, because raises are so small and there's so much capital out there, they don't really need to go very far to find it in terms of the top end, right? But with Ceres specifically, they had this initial Binance round back in 2019. Then they had an institutional round, a private round, and now they're having this poker round. Altogether, they're raising $8 million. So you go back to kind of what I was talking about, where I said, well, any project can start at 1 to 3. The goal is to get to 5 to 10 right now. And if you break 10, then you go to 15, right? If you're starting out you're raising $8 million. I forget what it is when you break it down. I think it's like, if you recall, maybe 2 something. I think circulating, like 2-ish. That's okay. That's fine. You can go 4x in my public round. I forget how much I'm getting. I think it says same here. So maybe I'm getting 25% up front. So if I go 4x at 25%, I get my initial. Okay. But with this type of play, it's more about just being in, because we pretty much know, Binance Labs is in the seed. It's probably going to go on Huobi or Binance, in my expectation, right? Just because the team has a lot of like inroads on that, and it's just a really solid team. So if that's the case, then this may be a thing where you're like, all right, well, I just want to be in. This could be a rare case where you see a ceiling hit 30 to 50 out the gates, because it has that liquidity boost. It has that, everything to it. It's Polkadot related, and really they're competing with Snowfork at this point in terms of their new vision from the pivot, right? You see like Binance Labs, NGC, Arlington are in. That's big, right? That's a big push.
So you could speculate that if Binance Labs is involved, this thing should come out and have pretty high floor. Yeah. Or at least a good push. I mean,
it could push your floor. So there's a lot of speculation, and when I see that speculation, even though I feel like I gave this a 10 out of 10 for hype, I'm actually uncomfortable with the massive cap, because those get OTC'd out and it can get really dicey. That's why it's a conservative punt, right? Yeah. Because a project like this at 2.5 million, if I could get in and it's exclusive, then it becomes probably an aggressive average play, right?
I'm impressed with your discipline in this regard. I mean, this thing came across my desk. I was like, oh, Binance Labs, max bet.
Yeah.
Just because, it's that season. I'm in this kind of aggressive stance right now when it comes to these pre-sales, because despite all my trading and all the time I spend on charts and some of these ideas, and then they hit, they don't hit, you get stopped out, then they hit, but these pre-sales, I think, we're like up there at 19 for 20. I mean, they just all seem to come out at some degree of multiple. It's an insane moment, and having lived through 2018, 2019, it's not a constant. So anyways, I saw this thing and I just thought, I read your report and I thought, okay, this is good information. But I'm still going hard on this one. So
look at the projects. Look at the projects we crushed at Magnus, right? How do they fit into this vision? You look at Yop, you look at CyberFi, you look at MahaDAO, you look at these amazing projects that we just absolutely slaughtered, both in terms of incubation and investment and support. Look at what their market caps were, right? We had that conversation. They were micro caps, right? We had that conversation about what's the best. I'm not going to go into the full details, but what's the best vesting distribution method, right? And someone on the call was talking about, well, I like daily, or I think monthly is fine. Well, the thing is that our reference point is ones where the float is irrelevant. If you're starting out at 500K market cap, your float's irrelevant. It's 500K, right? You look at where the springboard is. You're looking at 10 to 20x if you're unlocked. And then if there's any sort of lock, like with the case of MahaDAO, then it's just this. It's almost pump and dumpable, if you want to call it that, right?
Pumpamentals.
There's some pumpamentals involved in that. But there's another tier where, like, talk about this 2.5 million tier. This is going to be fairly common for some time. Tier 1 projects going 2.5 million and cutting it down, right? People are asking, well, why are we cutting down allocations distributions in a bull market at such a small price compared to what happened in 2017? Well, the reason is because people are still skeptical of going like full bore into the ICO market after everyone got trapped at the top in 2017. So even though there's still like a lot of excitement, they understand that there's not the same type of buy pressure that there was back then. from every Tom, Dick, and Harry who were trying to get into these different ICOs, right? You can't have like a 10 to 20 million dollar market cap. You saw what happened with Rio Chain. They raised $20 million and just completely got slaughtered, right?
Yeah.
There was
Well,
no room
maybe a
for
little
ROI.
too far too fast. But let's go back to 2016 when Stratus, and I'll see if I can find it on here. Stratus, and this is before my time, so I know this basically from hearing about it. I guess there's Strax now. I didn't even notice that. Stratus did their ICO back in 2016. I guess I could maybe check ICO drops. Stratus. Anyways, they raised like 600K. And so that was in that sort of earlier valuation where it was much lower. Poor guys, because if they just waited 6 months, they would have probably raised like 40 million in 10 seconds. They're off ICO drops now. It's been so long. But, point is, maybe John will flip back to the video for a sec. They were early. They 200x, I think even more than that. I can't even tell you offhand. I just know that the following year, 2017, ICO craze, the valuations were insane. So when you're coming out at that sort of sub 1 million micro cap, and then suddenly, I think Storage raised in May 2017. That was my first ICO, 50 cent, 25 cent token, whatever it was. But by the end of the year, we had Tezos, EOS raised over $1 billion. Like
That was insane.
AirSwap raised something like 30 something million in about 30 seconds or 1 minute. So my point is, I think this year we are going to see that where the inflation of these raises goes up, and you just
Always
start to
happens.
see. Yeah, we just, and that's actually to me what makes me think that we're still early in what somebody might say. Well, there's a bubble coming, or we're in a bubble. And I would just say that watch the valuations of these projects, because it was clear as day from the beginning of 2017 to the end. The amount that was being raised, the amount of hype, at the end, it didn't even matter what you were. It was like, product, no, doesn't matter. White paper, misspelling mistakes, like straight out of high school, no problem. Let me just throw in max bet. And obviously some of that aged really well. I mean, I got some really sick ones later in the year. I mean, ICX Icon was a good one. I think they had like a
ICX was good if you got the tokens right away. ICX was good. If you had to wait until March to May for the ledger support to come out, then
I didn't even know that was a thing. I got them. That was actually felt like a long hold. I think I've invested in like, I don't know, October 2017, and then they didn't come out till December, which happened to be during the blow off top. So they came out in 120x or something.
Yeah.
But point is, by the end of the year, all the valuations were insane. They stayed high in 2018, where teams were still coming out and raising 10, 20, 30, 40 million. And then the starting caps just couldn't keep up, and they all unwound. And some of them are still alive. In fact, shout out to ZCN, whose shirt I'm actually wearing today, just because it's a comfortable shirt. It's not like to promote them. I don't work with them, haven't before, but we invested in them back in 2018, and they, we got to give them a little pat on the back, because they have now returned to their ICO price very recently. And I know a few of my buddies. In fact, I think I'll give you a shout here, John. Our producer never sold a dime. And he texted me the other day and he's like, bro, ZCN just returned to that ICO price that we bought at.
Some strong ass hands, my guy.
Diamond hands from the producer here. So nicely done. Meanwhile, I definitely sold somewhere through the bear, like just to rotate into shit that I was trading. I was like, why am I holding this? It's not moving. So who knows what I did with that money in between, if I did a better return than just simply holding. But that's neither here nor there. Simply sitting still, this thing came back. I think it was $1 that it ICO'd at. So
that's the value pitch right there when we get on calls with investors. They're like, well, John here, he's held Zero Chain for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's the type of dedication we're bringing to the table.
We're a diamond-handed fund. I obviously rotate early on if I can with that initial, because I just like to have my initial back, stay liquid, and then be an investor with the rest of it. And that's a safe place to play. And then I don't have to depend on the market, because, people say, well, if you believe in us, then you should invest and just hold. But we know better. And that is that if there was a bear, which I don't expect is coming anytime soon, but I still treat it as, I respect the market, and I don't presume to know. If there is bearish sentiment, if there is bad news, no strong project is going to survive that drawdown. In crypto for now, things are still fairly correlated. So, protect capital. Rule number one. I think investing in the project is a value add in and of itself, supporting. But when somebody, I've had people like message me like, man, did you sell some? And I'm like, yeah, I did at a profit, and I'm taking care of myself. Like, leave me alone. Are you going to feed my family, bro? So
I love it. I love it, bro.
like, are you paying my rent? Then,
Yeah.
let me help you raise money and let me support your project.
People are obsessed with going through wallets and shit, and I'm just
it drives me crazy. It drives me
like,
crazy.
bro, I don't
right
have
now.
enough. I don't have enough time for that. Someone in the chat, I did want to address this because I have to leave in a few minutes.
Okay.
Someone said some projects like EOS have really good tech, though, right? Sometimes I just want to say this. First off, EOS has had so much time to put out anything tangible. But the thing is that, are you needed, right? Are you being used? To Ethereum, people have become comfortable with Ethereum, and MetaMask makes that comfortability really easy. And Ethereum gets preloaded into MetaMask when you install it, right? If you want to set something else up that's a fork of Ethereum or whatever, you have to set up a custom RPC, and the usability isn't the same. Like, look at when you try and use Binance Chain, etc. Right? So MetaMask has this first mover's advantage. They provide a quality, and quality is very subjective in this point of view, but they provide a quality user experience, right? Someone said they can't hear us in the chat. Maybe this.
Did we lose you on that shot?
Yeah, my money shot.
The money shot. Looks like we got to check our live sound. Oh, hey, Matty, got to use.
Yeah, are we good on audio? Okay. Cool. But yeah, so with MetaMask, they have this first mover advantage. They have this quality, user experience, right? With Ethereum, there's a lot of action happening on it, and you can even say it was kind of thrived from that. But with EOS, like, what was EOS supposed to be? Like, gaming centric with a database spin? That's, if I recall. It's been a while since I've looked at them, but we'll just say database, blockchain. Like, look at every database play out there. We can even add Chromeo onto the pile. And Filecoin is now the new one, right? They had that big ICO, and everything kept getting OTC'd, and now they're out and they're doing well. Let's see how long they stay around. But yeah, I mean, these guys will stay around because they raised a shitload of money. But who is using them? No one. No one is using them. No one wants to use them. There's no need for a database right now. Like,
is that why everyone hates on EOS? Because there's just metrics, or I never actually look at the on-chain. I just always hear about it getting bashed. But then there's always like the EOS is great, and then there's like EOS is trash, and it seems to be very polarized.
My philosophy in general is, if you have a shitload of money, you can at least build something great, right? End of story. If you have billions of dollars laying around, I said the same thing about Justin Sun back in 2017. I said, if you have a shitload of money laying around, you should be able to build anything. I can go build flying cars for some of the money that these guys have, right? But at the end of the day, with databases specifically, centralized databases are 10 times more efficient than decentralized databases, just hands down, right? So if your model is database centric, right? The first thing we ask ourselves is, okay, what do we need databases for in terms of on chain, right? And what are the actual people who need databases? What are they using? They're probably using centralized databases because it's more efficient, more secure, et cetera, whatever your use case you want to throw out there. And then you say, okay, well, maybe there's a market out there that really values decentralized databases. Out there in the traditional space, there isn't. They're all using centralized. Half of them don't even know what blockchain is, right? Or they know what it is, but don't really feel comfortable adopting it, right? So what that means to me is that if databases or if some sort of storage play or whatever is going to be relevant, then I think what you're going to see is that it may be relevant like 5 or 10 plus years from now, and most projects die if they don't get adopted within like 2 to 5 years in this space. So good luck, right? I'll tell you right now, I will stand firm and this is hard to say because they have so much money, but I will stand firm and tell you that EOS will be dead by the time we have the next bull market. They should be dead, because what are they honestly doing, really?
Well, yeah, I can't tell you. Maybe that's because I haven't looked, or maybe that's because they're not making enough noise because they're not doing anything. I don't know. But I will say timestamp February 3rd. Heard it here first. Dead before the next bull.
Someone said, "What about a decentralized VPN use case?" So I invested in Blockstack back in their Series A or whatever it was, and I really wanted to have a quote unquote decentralized internet. But how are we there's a big problem with this, because how are we going to facilitate this without setting up our own node network, which is actually illegal, by the way. They tried to do that in the South in some of these disproportionate Appalachian towns, and these internet providers came in and was like, you can't set up your own networks, right? So when we look at centralization, we have to identify the bottlenecks, and the ISP is the ultimate bottleneck, right? We already have OpenVPN under Nord. It's a framework in which it's probably the closest thing you're going to find to decentralized VPN. But how do we stop the ISP, who is the true centralized bottleneck, from oppressing us, right? And that's the real problem, because once you pull the cord you're not going to fix it until you pull the cord from the wall. So what's going to happen is that someone's going to create some sort of technology that just can't be stopped. Like you look at music piracy, right? Everyone was pirating it. What are you going to do to stop it? You look at blockchain. It's a distributed network. What are you going to do to stop it, outside of crushing the fiat on ramps and going
regulating the gateways?
Regulating the gateway, just going full bore, right? So there's a trade-off that happens, especially in that scenario, right? The trade-off is that it'll still be decentralized, but the access will be more limited, right? That's your trade-off, without overthrowing a government or something like that. So yeah, I mean, when you look at a decentralized internet, which is truly the end goal, because blockchain can't truly be decentralized without a decentralized internet, it really comes down to either some sort of technology that allows everyone to tap into it and can't be shut down, or that governments have essentially just turn off ISPs, and that internet is like a human right, which it should be. And these social media platforms should probably stop oppressing people. I don't care if they're spitting out racist shit, because that is just an excuse to oppress people. You look at Wall Street Bets, their forums were shut down because they had quote unquote racist language. I don't doubt that.
Oh, is that the reason they use?
That's the reason they used to shut down their Discord. Yeah. I don't doubt that there was racist language that was not being moderated in there, but it's just really ironic that Discord, after years, didn't bother sniffing their asshole until someone decided to go, until this became a big story, right?
Yeah, until there was a money incentive behind it.
Yeah, until there was a money incentive behind it from big hedge funds that have a stake in those platforms and basically pulled their card, right?
Yeah.
So on that note, I do have to go. I'm running 5 minutes late for another meeting. I know we wanted to have some more time. Maybe I can come back on.
So, I mean, I'm working with you fairly closely. So yeah, we'll get you back on here anytime you want, basically.
Yeah, I have some time next week. Maybe we'll catch up.
Dope. All right. Sounds good. Seconds. We can even stay on cam. I'm literally going to stand up and stretch.
Cool. Yeah, it was awesome being on. Thanks a lot, John, as well. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Let's do this. Feels so weird not being on green screen. It's like, what's back there? It's real life. Holy shit. We'll be back in the Sports Desk studio very soon. As soon as I find the bloody stud finder that I packed in one of these boxes, set up my green screen, and we're back in Wonderland. Now, let's get into the charts, guys. Hit me up in the chat if you have any things you want to request. I've got 30 minutes here on the back end of our interview that we can explore some charts. First of all, I will tell you what's in my bag, because that's the easiest place for me to start. I've been looking at, I've been staring at this chart, but I've been trading InFi. Where is InFi? I've been talking about this one a little bit lately. Finally popped today, even though it's only been like a week. But as somebody pointed out, sometimes the larger your position, the slower time seems to go. I don't have a massive one in here, but it's got a pretty decent little rise in today. And what I was looking for, let's go to the 4-hour. When I tweeted this out this morning, because it was breaking out, and I thought, you know what? That's worth a tweet. Every few days, I like to update something. What I wanted to see here was a new high in volume because we've got positive price action. And at the moment that I thought of it this morning or saw it, we still hadn't really broken any volume. We have done that now. In this case, it closed red. So it was a pretty aggressive move up and then a drop down. Now, here's the thing. If I want to be a bull and I want something to support my bias, then I can just switch over to the 1-hour chart here. And I can say, well, look at that. It was mostly buying up at the highs. Really nice blast of buy volume. So that's really what I wanted to see as we come out of this sort of rounded bottom formation. We'd already flipped this SR level. We had already retested it. And as we move up, I want to see big buys coming in to support that move. And that's exactly what I've got on the 4-hour, the 1-hour. The 4-hour obviously closed red, so it looks a little different, but bit of a toppy, like whatever, probably done for today, but who knows? Right now we're at a bullish throwback. So, InFi, micro size, Polkadot, insurance play. I think it's going to catch some moves. I would be shocked if it never hits this fib extension. Is it going to hit it first before making a low? Who knows? But I'm holding on. I didn't really rush to sell today. It's the beginning of a breakout from this as far as I can see. And I'm excited about this one. Another one that I've got a big old bag of lately is Pickles. And Pickles caught a bounce today off of a retest level as well. As you guys know, Pump Chaser Zone, I finally traded this one, added a little bit after trading this breakout. Well, this was what put it on my radar, was this big candle here, this big volume. So I picked some up in the 12 at around 15, just before this high broke. Basically touched my entry again today, so whatever. But, I don't know that everyone realizes this. I don't know that I don't know how to classify it, but there's a relationship here with Wi-Fi. Is it a partnership? Is it an integration? I don't know. But basically, the Yearn V2 vaults, Pickles will be involved to some degree. Dill is coming out soon. It's a yield token. I don't know. So I won't pretend to be an expert on this one, but I have been reading through some of their mediums and all that stuff. And as you guys know, I'm more technical heavy, but I have looked into the fundamentals just enough to tell me that even on this dip, even as it comes after going up nicely for me and coming right back to my entry, of course, I'm not rushing to sell that. I think Pump Chaser Zone with rising volume tells me I want to stay long or get long. That's just what I did. And I think the only other one I will bring up to start today is Nord, basically sitting where I left it with Scott Melker last week. And that's fine. It's on a bullish kind of trend, right? Higher lows, higher highs. And this consolidation, the longer this goes, the stronger I can expect the following move to be. So fuck it. Let's spend 2 weeks right here and I'll take my 5X, whatever it's going to be. And I lied because I'm going to do one more because Yop is just teasing the dollar level again. And when that breaks, I expect to see some fireworks. We'll see. No guarantees ever in this market, but I really like what Yop's doing. It's a product that I actually want to use. I did invest in the seed round. So, keep that in mind. I'm biased as hell, but I did it because I believed in it. And since they've been coming out and they've actually come out and delivered pretty well to this point, as far as they can, I mean, you don't have a live product just yet. So what can I say they delivered? Well, they've delivered a really solid marketing and sort of launch program communication. I know the CEO, I talked to him, the founder, I should say. And they've got some really big investors coming in from the traditional space. And I've looked at a lot of what they've been putting together on the back end. They just did a live demo on Monday, blah, blah, blah. When this level breaks, which I expect it will, watch out for Yop. Okay. That's all I've got on this one. This is in my bag. And I'm really excited about it because as you make higher lows coming up into the same level again and again, you tend to get sort of a blow off breakout. And that's exactly what we just saw with Ethereum. This exact kind of thing, right? Higher low, resistance, higher low, resistance, higher low, resistance, breakout. Now it's support. Will it ever get a test? Probably. Today, not likely. Ethereum is blasting off and it's powered by this chart, ETH BTC, which is looking really good after putting in a bullish retest of the Pump Chaser Zone and the weekly breakout level. And just looks like, I think if we break this high, this thing's just going to teleport. Not in like a 15-minute candle, but like in 2 weeks, we're just going to be up here. And what would that look like for Ethereum? Well, I mean, you can see I've outlined this fib extension, but I don't think that that would be the stop. Let's put a chaos. Look, I mean, this is a big consolidation. This took quite a while. I mean, in the 4 hour at least, years and years. But let's take a look at the chaos PRZ, because I find those things are so eerily accurate as far as like at least where price might pause. So I'm going to draw it by applying it to the right low, the higher low here, and then the back to the middle, like the high in the middle. And then it just kind of kicks out sort of that pent up energy. Where will it extend to? So we're looking at $2,000 Ethereum in the near term, and I say near term, I mean weeks, possibly sooner the way this thing's going, but who knows? And then as high as, Chaos PRZ number 2, all the way up at 2,700. Those numbers aren't as crazy as perhaps they might have sounded last year when Ethereum was trading at $300. The futures on the CME go live on Monday. That's the 8th of February. I think it'd be a little weird to put on any kind of big leverage into that event. It should be met with some kind of volatility. I mean, we're talking about a massive liquidity pool entering into the Ethereum market. In Bitcoin, it marked the top, like to a T, when CME futures went live. I don't think it will in the case of Ethereum, but it might. It might. It's possible. Improbable, but possible. So I have to, at least assume there will be some pretty big bets taking place that day. So huge fundamental events like that, and it is massive. Don't understate or underestimate how big an event that is. It's not going to make or break Ethereum in the long term at all. But as a trader's life goes, it is a big fundamental event. So as a golden rule, I tend to just stay away from leverage trading on a big fundamental events. There you go. So let's go look at some coins. I've done my intro rant. That's about all I had to say. Bitcoin dominance is coming down. I guess the only other thing is Bitcoin, and it's looking good. What can I say? It's looking strong. I don't even know if I like this chart anymore. I think we've had our wedge breakout. I could probably find something a little better, maybe from our weekly views put out this morning on Twitter. If you guys want to check it out, at Real Hero Labs, I've got sort of a newslettery thing. It's not quite the format. It's more of a bullet point highlights of the week, featuring a whole number of weekly charts. If you guys want to check that out, I put it out on Twitter today. Usually it's going to be on the Mondays each week following the New York Open. But this week, obviously, I was moving, so I did it today. And I'll have another one on Monday with the launch of Ethereum. Now, yeah, this is sort of what I see here. Key battleground coming up. Even down here, I'm just thinking, look, this might look bearish. This might be crap, but we're going to have to see what happens up here. Because, there's really two things I see here. Well, three, I guess. Right? You've got your bullish for altcoins, right? Where we just do some more fig pong, and that would be sick. I mean, this would be like alt season extraordinaire. You've got, I'm just a super big rip roaring bull. I'm going to ruin the party for altcoins, but lift the entire market up on my back. Still great news. Or you've got the, oh my gosh, we're a bunch of bears. We're going to, defend this short reload zone. And then we're just going to go and find more liquidity below and maybe tap this 20-week moving average. Scenario number 3 seems the least probable to me. Scenario number 1, consolidation continuing, seems maybe like slightly the most probable. And then just strong continuation is fairly closely equally probable to that. So I'm leaning towards consolidation or continuation. But of course, you're always going to have in the back of your mind that you could just wake up and it's all gone. Probably not the healthiest way to live, but it'll keep your shirt on your back. All right. So yeah, leaning heavily towards things just continuing to be great for the foreseeable future, but we'll just see. The best thing that could happen for me, the way I'm positioned, and that's probably why I'm biased that way, is just this kind of thing. More of this, the better for Bitcoin. Don't care where it goes, as long as it doesn't go way, way up or way, way down. And if it just wants to go way, way up, cool. But that'll hit a lot of my stop losses on my BTC pairs, which is fine. It just puts me back into Bitcoin and we're off for the ride. All right. Checking the chat. Swear to God. Cover. CVR, Polka cover, 5 mil market cap. Yep. Would like to check that. Like the sound of 5 mil polka dot anything. Polka cover. All right. Oh, Talk dirty to me. Who brought this up? Nathan Wissing, legend. Yeah, it's like the slightest bit out of my wheelhouse as far as like, okay, yes, it just broke out. But this reminds me a lot of the InFi chart. I mean, this is what you want to see. You want to see a project that, for me, it's like, yeah, Polkadot, cool, check. My boxes of things I like to be involved with. Market cap, sub 10 mil, things I like to be involved with. Breakout, oof. Yeah, that's a good call. Hot gem mention from Nathan Wissing. Appreciate that. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about us? 3 sentences that describe that. As I rush to my ledger to ape into it. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding. So, I want to buy some right now. Not going to lie. I'm FOMOing. Bao Finance. Yeah, we're going to check out Bao Finance right after my transaction goes through. Let's take a look at these transactions, actually, because the gas on Ethereum right now is disgusting. So I actually don't really want to buy any of that right now. I mean, you'd almost have to spend like 10 grand to make one of these transactions worth it. That 158 GUE insurance. Okay, cover, could be cover. Okay, so it's like another Polkadot insurance play. InFi, I've already got a bag. Maybe I should be thinking about like just rotating. So I don't love selling out of this now at this kind of throwback. Look at that chart though. Look at InFi. Sick bullish throwback level. Anyways, I get fired up about certain things like this chart. This chart fires me up. What's it doing versus ETH? Not like that. Versus the Ethereum, also looking pretty bullish, holding strong, rising with the ETH. So, staying flat versus ETH. So it may just be kind of rising today. Maybe just as a reference point to Ethereum. Don't invest in Polka cover. Okay, the Royal Fortune. Heavy duty commentary from Royal Fortune says don't invest because of the shitty WordPress website. Okay, that's fair. Now, going back to what Matty talked about today, there's so much more to good due diligence, but I agree with you. If there's a really trash website, I start to wonder, if you can't even get that right, what can you do? Now we're going to have to go look at it together, aren't we? I don't know, man. I did a WordPress in university once for a project, and it was not as nice as this. And I'm not a scam. So there's logic for today. Less than 1% of all DeFi, crypto, and NFT assets are adequately insured. We are here to change that. Sounds reasonable. I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's not as bad a website as you made it sound. It's certainly not like I won't invest because of this website. I've seen so much worse. I once saw a website that had like 2 buttons on it and a friggin' paragraph in like Arial script 14. Like it was literally default Word document. They just copy pasted it onto a site with 2 buttons, and it was like, we're raising $30 million. Spoiler alert, it was a scam. Nobody invested, and then, well, I didn't anyways, and they are not around. So I'm going to check this one out later. I like this one. John, add it to our post-stream maybe buy thing list. Polka cover, like that. It's a gem, just running with the Polka insurance trends. Yep, Nathan Wissing, I'm with you. Sometimes you just got to not think too hard and fire. That's what I did with Siri. I'm really excited about this one. I think it's coming out sometime in February. Really excited. Anything backed by Binance Labs has a winning pedigree, in my opinion. And that doesn't mean that it could just be trash otherwise, but it also happens to look pretty dope otherwise. So let's take a look. What else do we got? Trying to save lives, do your own research. Yeah, Royal Fortune doing God's work over here. Appreciate you giving an alternative opinion. I mean, part of the due diligence process is sifting through everything. But, if this is if your knock on it is simply around the website quality, I can't say I'm with you on that one. It just looks decent. I mean, probably want to click here, read the white paper, pick through the tokenomics. You used to read like 2 white papers a day back in 2017. And, you know, it doesn't sound like much, but then after 3 weeks, you've read 21, 42 white papers. And then everything just starts to blend together. Days become months, become hours, becomes years. Suddenly, I don't know where I am. That's basically how 2017 went. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty decent white paper too. Like at a very quick glance. Obviously, I'm not doing my due diligence now. I'm just, I do like, you know, if I have concerns around the depth and legitimacy of a project, I'll skim through some of these kinds of docs, even just like this. Because I've seen some that, again, they're like 12 pages and they have nothing. And they're like, okay, they're literally just a toilet paper idea. These guys on the very quick 2-minute live, trying to focus on being live versus actually reading. Surface, I'd give them a hot 4 out of 5. Dive in a little more. Maybe I go up, maybe I go down. We'll see. Adam looks primed. I was looking at this today, wondering why I don't own more. I own some, but not more. Would like to own more of this. This is taking a second shot at all-time highs, right? So breaking to all-time highs, nice correction, really perfect example of the pump tissue zone. You know, okay, not perfect. I mean, it blasted through a little bit. So if anyone was using the tight stop here, it didn't really go well. But, you know, making contact with and then continuing. So if it comes up to these highs again, I would expect continuation. Let's see Bitcoin version looks like. I'm guessing. Ooh, resistancy. Okay, so let's talk about this chart, because this is actually something I have to keep in the back of my mind. It doesn't look as bad on the daily. In the back of my mind, I have to consider, we've talked about this a lot. I'm going to keep saying it. I'm going to beat this dead horse. I'm going to beat this horse dead, and then I'm going to beat it while it's dead. That's messed up. So I'm going to share with you guys the same thing I've talked about a few times, which is basically that these bottom formations can take a while. So while the USD pair may continue to rally, the BTC pair may do this, right? And then like this kind of consolidation can take quite a while until it's ready to just absolutely melt faces along with Bitcoin. And I am, you know, so I have a hard time obviously buying here for these when it's like with my Bitcoin, because it's just not in my buy zone, right? It's at resistance, like up here. Okay, cool. I can buy it basically at this level, but from the other side. So it depends what you're trading against. If I'm trading against USD, it's also not at my buy zone, but it is kind of at an SR flip level. So I could probably justify some kind of trade up here because it's a key breakout into price discovery. Different setup, different strokes, different folks. Tell you what I did buy today. Just remembered this. Bought it kind of right here. I picked up some of this today. We'll see how that ages. I'm going to be probably getting out if we lose these lows because of everything I just said. You know, if we lose those lows because Bitcoin decides to break out, and that's, you know, it's a good thing ultimately. Bitcoin bull is what we need to drive the engine of crypto. As long as you know how to shift in and out of positions, or at least care to. Some people are like, well, whatever. I'll just hold till the end of the year. Don't care. I will shift out of positions into Bitcoin and ETH if I think Bitcoin and ETH are going to rip faces. ETH is ripping, but for now, a lot of pairs are keeping up. But if Bitcoin breaks up, you know, in a big, mean, nasty way into price discovery again, I will not be sitting in altcoins almost at all. I will have some like Uniswap bags that don't really trade against Bitcoin that are likely just going to move up slower, but in USD, and that's fine. But like altcoins on Binance, for example, that trade against Bitcoin directly, they will stop out and I will be sitting in Bitcoin, just a heads up. Because anyways, so I bought some of this here today at this retest, and we're just going to have to see. I really like HBAR. I think Hedera Hashgraph is strong. I am biased because I bought some here and then it blew off and made me, you know, it was the first good trade I had in 2020. So I have a soft spot for it. I sold a lot up here, you know, and never really, I think I tried to trade it once through this and got stopped out, and then picked some up on this retest. So it's been good to me. And so I've been watching it closely, and I think that I'm ready for leg 2. I'm ready to try to trade leg 2. And this volume here is what kind of gave me a hint that I'm interested. So let's see. Hash graph basically still sitting at my entry. I mean, hasn't moved yet today, but you know, I only have to get to like here to even within range to get a return. I'll probably go 4-1, sweep these highs at the very least. I mean, look at that. I can have half my profit back or half my position back, or, you know, whatever, 20%, whatever I choose. I haven't set it up yet. I barely even have to leave the station. And if it extends, whoop, you know, whatever. So I like this spot for Hashgraph. All right, let's go back to the chat. I got a little rambly there. Can you take a look at UMX? Sure. Let's go see UMX. And John, if you see anything over on Facebook, shout out to CCI if you guys are watching from over there. Comments, questions, reports. Excuse me, not reports. Requests. You forward them over here, and I'll take a look. UMX. Unimex. Is that Unimex? Whoa, look at this range. Holy shit. There's actually a bot. I forget the name of it. My buddy Mick uses it. And it will trade a range for you on Uniswap. So it's like, it's basically you sign a transaction that gives it access to your wallet. Freaky, I know. And it will trade 10%. So like if it goes up 10%, it'll sell. And if it goes back down 10%, it'll buy. And like that looks like everyone on this coin is just using that bot. This is a sick range. Very volatile. Let's see what the percentages are. I mean, buying range lows, selling range highs, you're netting 78% 5 times over. Not that you could know this was going to happen back when it did start happening, but this kind of bot range trading is interesting, to say the least. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, it's ranging. That's easy to say. Probably don't want to be buying here unless it's at the range low, given that if you're in a clear defined range, trade it. If you want to wait for a breakout, wait for it. Don't try to force it into something it's not. It's not trending. It's not trending at all. It's ranging. Let's go see what that looks like. So in this case, whoops, I want to get some color on that. Dude. Yeah, I'd be pretty interested down around here. Maybe even here if I'm really keen on buying it. I mean, one thing you do see is the volume starting to heat up a little at these highs, but still lots of sell volume. Probably want to look into who that is. If it's on Uniswap, you can actually check. You know, is this like a bunch of whales selling here and they still have huge amounts left? They're not going to let it out? Or is it just a whale that is now out of coin? That's the one cool thing about Uniswap. You can actually check into that. And often I will if I see big nasty sells, and then I'm just like, man, is that somebody who just wants out and they have tons left and they're not going to let it out? That's different than a big whale who just finished selling his bag. So look into that. You know, if it breaks out of here, forget about it. That's going to be a really sweet extension, because this consolidation we talked about before, longer, deeper, the better, stronger move. And obviously if it breaks below this level, run. And be careful how you interpret that, because it's like, if it just one candle and then it's like, oh no, I saw the bottom, right? There's a few ways to do that. It's not as simple as like one wick and then. I wish I had a good answer for that. You could arguably waiting for the structure below to know for sure. But yeah, can't say. So UMX, what else we got? X Fund. XFUB'd. No wonder they didn't find it. What about X Fund? Cover. Just make sure you have the right chart. Looks like you went for cover CVR on Uniswap. Oh God, was I looking at the wrong one? No, Polka cover. Yeah, Polka cover. Look at that chart. Jesus. So good. Could look at that chart all day. I don't have any yet, but I will probably. Let's go see X Fund. I don't know if it's here. Oh, it is. Look at that unification. Let's go see. Wow. Wow. Okay. All right. Let me show you what's going on here. This is my hot take. Take it for what it is. Huge blast off. Really nice volume. But where did the volume go? Where is it going? We're losing the steam. Too far too soon. Whatever. That's normal. That's markets. Whereas me being totally objective, not really, look at that. Oh, sweet spot already tagged. Juicy. So that's where I would get in. Like if I was, FOMOing into this, pump chaser zone, sure, whatever. But like generally speaking, these RLZs are really hot. With this dying volume, I wouldn't be excited to try to find a bottom. As far as like I have to buy right here. In fact, there's already just kind of like this new bearish little structure. So I would expect at least this level to hit very soon, if not, if not making a new low here. And then you have, this is getting really inky. Then you have, then you have a bullish divergence potentially forming where this becomes a low. Then you get a lower low. But when you pull up, say, a MACD, you end up with a low and a higher low. So if this comes in here like this, and the MACD does not go below this level over here, and maybe it just goes to here, then you have a bullish divergence, which is what you want to see on these kinds of retraces. So keep an eye on that. If you get down into here, don't necessarily freak out. Wait and see if you can find some divergence. And that tells you that this is sliding into the finish of the pullback. And then you can maybe wait and catch the next leg if there's going to be one. Big ifs, always big ifs. Never know. But that's how I would trade this. This is a sick looking chart though. Holy shit. I mean, what was this? Like, 74x. That's crazy. That's insane. So think about whose bag you're buying too. $19 to $1,400. Holy shit, X fund. I'd have to look into those. Oracle. Okay. Oracle play, 3 million market cap. Yeah, I'd have to look into the fundamentals of this first to get a better understanding of why it went up 7,400%. What caused that? Is that still around? Is there going to be selling? Chase, you just missed Matty, dude. He was here for the first half. We had a really good chat about due diligence and how we look at projects, some of the stuff we've been looking at. So Chase, you can find him on the replay. We are a little late for that as far as he's gone. He had to go to a call. So that's why we bumped it up. I don't know if you guys noticed. We were all over the map today. It was like, we're going to go at 3. No, we're going to go at 2:30. And that's because he had a call at 3:30. So I should have probably checked with him before we pushed it to 3, but whatever. 2:30 to 3:30. Full hour of Oh Hey Matty. It was good. Dot and Bow. Oh my God, I forgot about Bow. Okay, we're going to go to Bow first. Bow. Because somebody asked first. Bow token. Oh, shit. Where have I been? This thing looks hot. Wow. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. That's crazy because this is a verse ether chart and Ethereum is blasting off. So I would expect the USD chart, which I bet I can find over here, it's probably even juicier. Yep. Even crazier because versus ETH, this thing's going up. ETH is going up. So versus USD, this thing should be going up double. And it is. Jesus. Crazy. Gonna give myself a visual range, always starting with my fib. Simple, repeatable, effective. Oh, that'll punch you in the gut if you were looking at this back in January 5th and didn't buy it. Ouch. 44,000%. What is that? 440x? Who is Bow? What did he do to deserve such returns? Wow, even like 2 pips and it's already down to 19,000, but whatever. That's still over 100x. Don't know what they do, but that chart looks intense. I mean, it's made new highs in volume even as it made the highest high. So generally speaking, I can't call tops on that. But if I was trading this and I had been any part of this move, I would certainly be paying myself up here because it's vertical. So even if it just goes like this, at some point, the probability is overwhelmingly high that it will correct this chart a bit. Even if I sell, took some profit today, and then the next 2 days I watch it go up and I kick myself and I say, it doesn't matter. Once you take a profit, once you make a decision, it's really best not to look back, other than maybe, yeah, this is a pay myself chart right here. Every single time I will pay myself, and I will never go broke doing that. I might miss a certain gain or two, but I won't go broke. And that's the key here. That's the bigger rule. Getting rich is cool. Not going broke is more important. Always get rich later, but not if you go broke. Okay, lower volume here on UBXT. Pretty poopy looking volume, but the chart itself is looking good. I mean, this is the kind of chart where I'm not paying myself. I'm taking risks. UBXT. Is this the one that I was just talking about? The Nathan, GRT just retested all-time high. Oh my God, everything's moving. Tell you, I love going live. Sometimes it is hard as a trader, and I'm like, because I'm obviously not trading right now, but I'm in positions. I'm not really trying to day trade too much, so it's all good. But also being live means I can go and just look at it. So the Bitcoin pair is moving up. I'm assuming you're talking about the USD pair then. Why did this thing stop up here? Why is it negotiating price? Probably the sweet spot. Yep. And then I could draw yet another fib, just fib-tastic all over the place. Pump chaser zone. Are we moving? Another leg in? Yeah. Looks like it because, volume kick up, consolidate, continue. Volume kick up, consolidate. I would expect to continue at some point. Yep, nearing the all-time highs versus USD. And I did not trade this, but oh my God, I should have. A good buddy of mine actually told me to. He said, check out GRT. It looks really good, like it's about to blow finally. And I looked at it and I was like, that looks great. Didn't execute a trade on it. God knows why, but it was the spot. Who knew? Away she goes. And that would have been like a free position basically on the weekend. Oh well. Next. Always another trade. You can rent algos to others. Oh. Interesting. Exchange coin. UBXT. Okay. Bow. UBXT. Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on this one. I mean, I love any chart in this kind of market where everything's just pumping. It's great to buy something that's trending up. It's great to buy something that's showing strength. But for me, I love to just park in some of these kinds of charts as long as I get a little look into the fundamentals and I find out that, I can trust that they'll be around for a little while. Like InFi, right? This one, the product's not even coming till later this year, but in that sense, there's lots of room for speculation. Whereas, if something's really sketchy and really anonymous team and all that stuff, then I get a little nervous around parking into these kinds of consolidations because it just may not move or may go down. Tiante, it's very relevant info. Okay, Royal Fortune, I will provide you with some very relevant info on BNB. Let's go see. I haven't charted this in so long. I wonder if my chart is even on here. Old ink. No, deleted it. Oh God. Oh, it is on here. Wow. Yeah. See, so here's an interesting thing about TA. Sometimes, sometimes my TA just says, get the fuck out. And this bearish market structure way back in the day with, yeah. So anyways, have not been trading this versus Bitcoin ever since this level was lost. We were charting it here. It was weird, actually. There was like a harmonic that came in here. Got a nice trade off into this. I'm still holding some because I use it for fees, but let's see what it's doing here. Let's get right out on this one. This is the last chart I'm going to do today, guys. I think I always say that, and then I do a couple more, but I do need to get outside. There's no windows in this room. And I'm going crazy. So I'm going to take a little walk before I get a few calls this evening. And then do some trading, hopefully. Go and ape into some of these great ideas. Yeah, I mean, look, BNB versus Bitcoin just tagged the 786 of its entire lifespan's move. So in a weird sort of high time frame way, this is the monthly. This is what I'd be waiting for. It's kind of dope. Just hit the 786 on the nose. I mean, look, we've barely even got our moving averages. That's the monthly. Let's take a look at the weekly. So, ooh, that's not the one. Do we have bullish divergence, any of that fun stuff? Not really. Any reason I can long this? Let's check the 3-day, searching for reasons. I mean, I'll give you a reason why I can long it. It's Binance, like the biggest exchange by market share, and I don't even think it's close. I would love to know the exact numbers on that. Last I heard, it was something like, well, I won't speculate because I don't remember. I don't want to be wrong on record. But I feel like I have 60% in my head. I don't know why that number is there. If they have that kind of market share, I don't think they do. Seems a little high, but ooh, good to know. Probably a good thing to look into. It's the exchange I use the most. I also really enjoy FTX. Hxro exchange because I'm not American. Like to trade on TixWix. In fact, I should pull up my TixWix after we look at BNB because I got a couple of ETH positions that are starting to reign. And I'll explain how I got into them and why. Okay, so no bullish divergence on the RSI, some bullish divergence on the MACD. And then if we flip over to the USDT chart, we're just in price discovery. So yeah, that's maybe the bigger story here, what it's doing versus Bitcoin. I mean, yeah, okay, Binance, BNB, price discovery. Ooh, easy pickings on the next target for someone who's like, what the hell's happening? Uh-oh, is it already there? Nope, but it's getting close. Keep an eye on that level. That's probably going to get a tag and a retreat. Doesn't mean it's a top, but there will be selling at that level almost certainly just because it's such an obvious thing. Another way we could look for a target is with a fib extension of this previous rally. Give us a little insight. Yep, there we go. $61 BNB. Doop. And another way we could look for confluence is with a little chaos PRZ, measuring the last consolidation. Oh my God, don't you love that shit? I love when they're lining up. And then I look at it and I say, oof, that's probably where I would take profit if I was in a trade that I longed from somewhere down below. If I was investing in this long term, I mean, God, BNB, Binance, burning quarterly revenues, like, oof, they're just so strong. I think they're just faster moving, things. Like, I don't know why I just don't have a bigger position, but I mean, I bought a decent little bag just to pay fees out of. Oh man, a wave of exhaustion just hit my face. Why am I yawning? What's going on? Oh my God, I'm on camera. Sneak attack from the producer. Not used to that. Well, you saw it here first. RT's tired. It's been a long week. Let's take a look at. Ooh, I don't know. I mean, it's a little late for any kind of talk of getting in on this as far as anything to do with my risk management strategy. But that's a sick level. And that's not that unusual to get a fib extension. And then you get a little chaos PRZ, and then they just smack to within 10 cents. I mean, that's crazy. That's a little unusual, that close. But what a strong level. 61.4. Heard it here first. All right. Hxro. Pulling up my account. Dox myself here. Just kidding. We covered? Nope. Okay, you can see my balance. It's not that crazy. But I did have a nice ETH long earlier. Pulled some of that out. And now I'm just looking here. So look, this Thursday, I should have just done more trading too. Like maybe just picking up some lower leverage longs because I was sitting there very confident in my thesis that it was a dip for buying. Spot, sure, can buy. think it was right here. Yeah. Like this was what I was waiting for. It was like, okay, cool. You know, I did long it here, got stopped out. You know, I did try to get a long in here, got stopped out. But once this happened and I came home and I was like, man, that's really fucked up. The one thing I knew was that I wanted long dated options exposure. And so I came over here and I picked up some ticks and some wicks, tweeted something out to that effect, basically said, look, I'm just going to fire a couple $500 tickets. You know, if it closes above 1700 on March 26th, this thing will be worth $2,200. That's like a 4.4x. If it even touches 1700 before March 26th, which let's be honest, at this point, I mean, it's giving it a 91% probability right now. But when I bought this, it was a 36% probability because, you know, buying on the lows. So that's how I played it. And you know what's funny? And that's basically half the value prop of this product is that you don't have to worry about stop losses. You don't have to think too hard. You just put in what you're willing to risk, total value, and just let the market do its thing. And it doesn't mean it's easy as far as like being profitable. I find it much less stressful because on that particular day, when I came in here and I was like, oh man, do I set my stop loss, you know, at this 786? Do I set it at this 88.6? Do I set it at this pivot low? Like, oh my God, then I have to size. And it was just so much thinking. And so I just calmly went over and I just like, fuck it, $500 ticket, $500 ticket. And like, and I haven't looked at them since and they're doing okay. So there's my show. In fact, this one's basically at value. I could close it right now, giving up $110 just to guarantee that it hits. But I mean, this thing has till March 26, basically the end of Q1. So do I think we can wick $70 higher sometime between now and then? Yeah, I'm not gonna. I mean, look at this chart. Is this not gonna move up to this level in the next 2 months? Well, yeah, a month and a half now. Yeah, no, it is almost certainly. I'm confident, but no guarantees. Yeah, no, ticks and wicks is my baby. And then, you know, of course, I look back and I'm like, oh man, this was such an easy bet. I should have bet more. But that is the best problem to have, and it's a problem I will always have because I manage risk, and I find it a hell of a lot easier to do on ticks wicks. So there you go. Okay, guys, we are going to wrap up for today. It's been a good old stretch. It's 4:20 where I am, so I've got some business to attend to. Just kidding. It's way too big a market to be getting high right now. But I will tell you this. It's been a goddamn pleasure. I hope you appreciated Oh Hey Matty's content and the sort of due diligence background dive we did.